Garden's got some like sharp edges on it, dried weeds. It's intended to wake the wearer of the garland up. It does a good job. The pain. Mahamaganatimirandasya Gananjana Salakya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Vayam Rupagadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajadham Sahagana Ragana Tanmitantang Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha He Krishna Kuruna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpachubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayet Nasta Preshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Shevaya Bhagavad Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. Today, Thursday, June 12th, 2025, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 28, Puranjana becomes a woman in the next life. Text number 55. So it's a bit of a long chapter. I think it has 68 verses. And then we are a few chapters away from the end of the fourth canto, which is interesting because then the fifth canto has so much potency and nectar we will see soon enough, but not today. So this text 55. Satvam vihaya mam bandho gato gramya matir mahim vicharan padam adrakshi kaya chinna nirmitam striyaha. My cursor got in the way. So tvam vihaya mam bandho gato gramya matir mahim vicharan padam adrakshihi kayachin nimitam striya. Satvam vihaya mam bandho gato gramya matir mahim vicharam padam adrakshihi kayachin nimitam striya. Satvam vihaya mam bandho gato gramya matir mahim adrakshihi kayachin nimitam striya. Satvam vihaya mam bandho gato gramya matir mahim vicharan padam adrakshihi kayachin nimitam striya. Satvam vihaya mam bandho gato gramya matir mahim Vicharan padamadrakshihi. Kayachin nirmitam striya. Keep chanting and someday you will become a great Vedic scholar. That day may not be today, but it will come. Synonyms, please repeat. Saha. That swan. Tvam. Yourself. Vihaya. Leaving. Mam. Me. Bandho. A friend. Gataha. Went. Gramya. Material. Mati. Was consciousness. Mahim. To earth. Vicharan. Traveling. Padam. Position. Adrakshihi. You saw. Kayachit. By someone. Nirmitam. Manufactured. Striya. By a woman. Translation. My dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic, and not seeing me, you have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which was created by some woman. Kind of humorous the way that's phrased, and this would be explained in the purport. Please repeat. My dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic. And not seeing me, you have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which is created by some woman. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. When the living entity falls down, he goes into the material world, which was created by the external energy of the Lord. This external energy is described herein as some woman or Prakriti. This material world is composed of material elements, ingredients supplied by the Mahatattva, the total material energy. The material world created by this external energy becomes the so-called home of the conditioned soul. Within this material world, the conditioned soul accepts different apartments or different bodily forms and then travels about. Sometimes he travels in the higher planetary systems and sometimes in the lower systems. Sometimes he travels in higher species of life and sometimes in lower species. He has been wandering within this material universe since time immemorial. As explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Brahmanda Brahmite Kaunabhagya Bhanjiv Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. The living entity wanders into many species of life, but he is fortunate when he once again meets his friend, either in person or through his, capital H, representative. Actually, it is Krishna who personally advises all living entities to return home back to Godhead. Sometimes Krishna sends his representative who, delivering Krishna's very message, canvasses all living entities to return home back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the living entity is so greatly attached to material enjoyment that he does not take the instructions of Krishna or his representative very seriously. This material tendency is mentioned in this verse as gamyamati, sense gratification. The word mahim means, quote, within this material world. All living entities within this material world are sensually inclined. Consequently, they become entangled in different types of bodies and suffer the pangs of material existence. Tatam vihaya mam panho, tato gramya matir mahim, bicharan padamadrakshihi, ayachin nimitam striya. My dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic, and not seeing me, you have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which was created by some woman. It's wonderful. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, perhaps, there. Mukum karoti bachalam hangam lagayate girim ajat kripa tamaham bande ligurum dinatarinum. So that some woman is the material energy, which the superintendress of this material energy of the material world is called Durga. Durga means a very difficult fortress, and that you cannot escape. You can't get out of that difficult fortress, especially if you're down in the dungeon, bound by chains. And that is the position of everyone, of all the conditioned souls. And this being absorbed in this mood of trying to enjoy the material world is referred to here in this verse as gramya mati. The word mati we find in other verses also. Generally is taken to mean the consciousness or the mind. And gramya, you may have heard this phrase when people are talking nonsense, it's called gramya kata. So in Sanskrit, the word grama means like a village. So gramya kata can also be said to be village talk. What is village talk? Oh, he said this, she did that, they did this, and then she told him, and then he went to her, and then they did this, and all the family this, and all mundane subject matters. Gramya kata. So generally speaking, devotees should not be engaging in gramya kata, but should be engaging in Krishna kata. And Krishna kata means talking about Krishna, hearing Krishna's words from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and hearing the descriptions of Krishna's activities and his pastimes and his name and his form as found in Srimad Bhagavatam and other literatures like Chaitanya Charitamrita. And even discussing Krishna's philosophy. Krishna himself tells Uddhava in the Uddhava Gita that I'm not interested in like mystic yoga and mental speculation, gramya kata and sense gratification. I am interested in the topics of self-realization as they're discussed by my devotees. So that's another indication of what the devotees are talking about. Are the devotees talking about he said, she said? Shouldn't be. Should be talking about, oh, what did Krishna say? What did Krishna do? You know, WWKS or WDKS. What does Krishna say? They got WWJD. What would Jesus do? Well, they have no idea what Jesus would do for the most part. And they do exactly the opposite anyway, as a matter of axiomatic principle. Because of this gramya mati, there's another Sanskrit phrase, Sanskrit word, Madhumati. Some of you may know Madhumati, the wife of Shesha Prabhu, both my old friends. And this Madhumati, the word madhu means sweet. So Madhumati, sweet consciousness. It's actually a name for Srimati Radharani, Madhumati. And it refers to one whose consciousness is absorbed in the sweetness of Krishna consciousness. In Radharani's case, it's the highest pitch and fever of Krishna consciousness. She is that devotee who is the most absorbed in Krishna. And everything she thinks, everything she says, everything she does, the way she dresses, the way she looks, the way she moves her eyes, everything is done for the pleasure of Krishna. That's her position, is to always please Krishna. So that is Madhumati, absorbed in the sweetness of pleasing Krishna. So there's a big difference between Gramyakati, one whose consciousness is materially absorbed. And what does that mean, to be materially absorbed? It means sense gratification. That's exactly what it means. It means sense gratification. And this is the difference between material consciousness and spiritual consciousness. Because those who are interested in developing spiritual consciousness, or those who are on the path of bhakti, they are not very eager to engage in sense gratification. They shy away from it, knowing its deleterious and detrimental effects upon the living entity. So this is a point that is not understood by those who are not Krishna conscious. That what is the enemy? The enemy is our attachment to sense gratification. And what is the whole world engaging in? Pursuit of sense gratification. And therefore, those who are thus engaged, they cannot understand the activities of bhakti whatsoever. As explained by our great hero, Prahlad Maharaj, in the 7th canto, the Srimad Bhagavatam. What does he say? He uses this word, mati. Matirna Krishne pratak svatoba mitopi bhajita griha bratanam. That those who have taken the griha brata, the vow to enjoy this material world, they can never understand anything about Krishna. Matir na Krishna. They cannot fix their minds on Krishna because of having taken this griha vrata. And therefore, what happens? What's the result of not being able to engage one's mind thinking about Krishna and taking a vow of sense gratification? It's like, the great renounced sages and ascetics and devotees take vows of austerity to engage in spiritual practices. Like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to cite an extremely notable example of a great devotee. He took a vow to chant 1 billion names of God. It took him about 10 years. And during that time, he lived in a grass hut in Mayapur with a leaky roof, a thatched roof. And he chanted on his japa beads day and night, and he would eat a little cooked rice once a day. That's it. That's it. No big honking breakfast. No ecstatic salad bar. No different kinds of sabjis and savories and chutneys, and no, little cooked rice once a day, and the rest of the time he was just chanting japa, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Amazing. Took him 10 years to fulfill his vow. He was a great mathematician and astronomer also. So he calculated how many rounds he would have to chant 1 billion names, and that's what he did. And if it rained in that grass hut with the leaky thatch roof, he sat under the umbrella. I guess he held it with his left hand, and he just kept chanting, despite the inconvenience So that is the opposite of Griha Vrata. That's called Dhrida Vrata. That's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Dhrida Vrataha, that those who take a great vow, a Dhrida means like a determined, fixed vow. I'm also thinking about the great devotee, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, who was extremely renounced from any type of sense gratification, although he was from a billionaire family. And he managed to escape from his family and go to Jagannath Puri, where Lord Chaitanya was staying at the time. And in order to maintain himself, they have these free food distribution booths, or at least they did at that time. And you could go there and get a little prasad, get a little bit of Jagannath prasad. And so he would go to the free food distribution booths outside the temple and, beg a little prasad like that. And that's how he was maintaining himself. Now, his parents had sent him some servants and some money to maintain him. They're all concerned about our Raghunath. We don't want him to struggle and fall in hard times. And so he was taking this money at first, and then he would prepare nice prasadam and invite Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take lunch. But then he felt guilty, he felt bad because the money was coming from his family and they're big rich materialists, and maybe that's not so pleasing to the Lord. So he stopped accepting the money and sent the servants away. And then he was just begging from the, what are they called? Those booths? Chatra something? It's mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then he thought, no, begging in this way, it's not so good. And sometimes he would beg just on the road. And then he thought, this is not good either, because you're looking at people, it's like a Sankirtan devotee knows this. You're looking at people, think, oh yeah, here comes a sweet boy. He'll take a book. And that's a rascal, I won't approach him. And he said, you're becoming like a businessman, looking at each person thinking, well, this one gives me something. And will that one give me something? And he thought, no, I don't want to think like that. I don't want to be dependent on that consciousness and thinking, this one will give a donation. Maybe that one will. Oh, that guy definitely not going to approach him. He looks like a real rascal. Look at that face of that materialist. Forget it. So then he adopted this program. They have this Mahaprasadam rice, and they give it out at the free food booths, and but after a while they still have some left over. It becomes like stale and rotten rice, and they would throw it out, throw it on the ground to a place where these cows were, the cows of the Tailinga district specifically, and then the cows would eat the rice off the ground. And Raghunath thought, well, there's that rice there, let me just get some of that. So he would take that rice, rotten, bacteria contaminated rice, and he would wash it very carefully, and then he would extract the hard inner portion of the rice grain. And then he would put a little salt, and then he would take that, and that's all he was taking. And Lord Chaitanya heard about this. So he went to see Raghunath, and he said, somewhat in a joking rasa, oh, Raghunath, I hear you're having this nice prasadam, you're having this feast, and you're not inviting me? And Raghunath was, no, my lord, no. And then he forcibly grabbed a piece of the rice from Raghunath, forcibly took it from his hand, popped it in his mouth. These are the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, the loving pastimes of his exchanges with his dear devotees. Raghunath Das is a very dear devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Raghunath was very embarrassed and downcast, thinking that this is rotten rice from the cows of Tailanga district. Why would the Lord take this? But because Lord Chaitanya was appreciating the renunciation of Raghunath Das Goswami, his detachment from material affairs. And he had instructed him that do not dress in fine garments and do not discuss the Gramya Katha, the activity, ordinary village activities, or the ordinary talk of regular people. And do not be attached to eating luxurious and fine foodstuffs, but always remain absorbed in the holy name of Krishna and your bhajan. And Raghunath was so fixed in his absorption in Krishna consciousness that it is stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about Raghunath that his renunciation was like the lines in stone. So if you have a rock that has some lines carved in it, so what is the nature of those lines? They do not move. They don't change. They are fixed. So his renunciation was like the lines in stone, immovable, unalterable, not deterred by any external circumstance, not complaining about this or that, ever. So that is the opposite. That is Dhirodatta, and that is the opposite of Griha-brata, which is spoken of in that verse from the 5th chapter of the 7th canto we just quoted about Prahlad Maharaj. Matirna Krishne, Paratak Swatoba, Mitobi Bhadyete Griha-bratanam. And furthermore, Prahlad says, Adanta Gobir, the people, they're so absorbed in sense gratification, they're so attached. Vishatam tamishang punak punas charvita charvananam. They're simply chewing that which has already been chewed, repeatedly trying to enjoy this material world, which has been a failed effort that's ongoing now for billions of lifetimes. You think you'd sort of get the idea that, hey, after a billion lifetimes, you know what? This isn't working. I'm not becoming happy by my pursuit of sense gratification. But the conditioned soul is so foolish that under the grip of mind, he thinks, yeah, okay, that's cool. Let me try to enjoy this material world. And this is the business of all the conditioned souls in the material world. And it is just the opposite of the business of the devotee, which is to hear, chant, serve, remember Krishna and his holy name, and to live in the association of like-minded devotees. This is so vital, this principle of association. We read about it this morning in the Prabhupada Nectar book, where it was actually misattributed to Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's actually a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita that sadhu sangha, sarva shastri koi, lavamata sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. That one can attain all perfection by even a lavamatra, which Prabhupada defines in technical terms as 1/11th of a second. A second's pretty fast, but you know, they have like the Olympic trials and they have these very technical timing things and they time it down to the thousandth of a second. So 1/11th of a second period of association with the sadhu, lavamatra, sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy, one can attain all perfection. So one should always keep oneself in the company of devotees and should vigorously eschew the association of non-devotees. Now, that may seem to some who are not well versed in the science of Krishna consciousness to be somewhat extreme. But having to deal with people in the ordinary world while going about Krishna's business, that's not taking the association of non-devotees or rubbing shoulders with him inordinately. We're not sitting down with them and eating meat or whatever, all the things they do. None of that. Just like we have our Govinda van with some transmission difficulty. So I went to the transmission shop to talk in a friendly way with the transmission guy and talk about the symptoms and what can be done, how much it's going to cost, and make an appointment to have them service the vehicle. So that's not associating with the transmission guy. You know, what brand is that you smoke in here? Let me have one. No, not like that. And we can even talk technical or talk shop with people who are expert in different things and helping us. Just like we have the old Mexican couple who runs the drapery business. And so they came here to measure up because we're having all kinds of problems with the curtains on the altar. And they're going to install a new system with steel ball bearings that will be very smooth instead of the curtain like it is. You can see it now hanging there partially, and you try to pull on it. You know, it's very bad for the curtain to do that. It rips the fabric. And so we want to maintain it and keep it nicely. So they're coming and they're expert. And, but they were very sweet people, and they were very impressed by, the peacocks and the turkey and the koi pond and the restaurant. And they were very pleased to see our oasis in the desert, which is not simply an oasis like an ordinary oasis where there's some water and some trees in the middle of the desert, but the desert-like existence of the conditioned souls who are trying to find some happiness, some little taste of happiness, like a drop of water in the desert that does not satisfy their parched tongues. But the nectar of Krishna consciousness is what actually pleases the hankering of the wandering soul, which Prabhupada mentions in this verse, this purport, very nicely, that we have left our position with Krishna and we have taken shelter of the material energy. And we're wandering around. Prabhupada compares the changing of the bodies of the living entity, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, to having different apartments. Just like in the course of your life, you may live in many different apartments. I've lived in a few myself. From the time that I, forcefully ran from my parents' house to another life in the material world. From living in one apartment here, I was renting an apartment with a friend of mine I went to high school with, and we didn't have much money, and there was a fellow down the street who was a successful architect, and he had owned a couple of houses in the barrio, and we rented a house from him. But we were so broke, we didn't pay the electric bill, and they turned off the electricity. But we still had the water. And so we're living without electricity, and we figured out a way to rig up the electric meter. And there are many stories like that. I lived in another place where the electric meter was in the bathroom, and you're supposed to have to fill out a little card. So usually we had the electric meter running backwards. You could put it on backwards, upside down, and it would run the other way. And so it would run the other way for half a month, and we put it would run back the other way, and we were paying $10 a month electricity. And then we just didn't even bother because they never came and looked at it. So we just fill out the little card, and we knew what digits to write in, so it would come up to $10 a month. That 4 guys living in the house, that's $2.50 each. The good old days. Now you can't do that. But those were those days where life was a little simpler and a little cheaper. And so we lived in these different little cheap apartments. And with that one roommate, we got another apartment. It was actually a house. They were houses, old little beat up houses. And we lived in this one house that was on Washington Avenue. And at that time, I had started going to the temple. And one day I was sitting in my room, and I was chanting japa on my beads. And suddenly I heard Krishna's flute. And I ran outside to see where was it coming from. I could not find the source. There was no one playing the flute anywhere. And I thought, wow, I heard Krishna's flute. I still, to this day, don't know exactly what happened. To me, I thought it was Krishna's flute. And I thought, well, maybe there's an ice cream truck going by playing some music or something. I ran outside, no ice cream truck, no music anywhere on the whole block. What is this, Krishna's flute coming into my room? I'm chanting the holy name. Like, wow, I need to move out of this house and into the temple. I need to get out of this neighborhood. It was a pretty tough neighborhood, pretty bad. Pretty crime-ridden and poverty-stricken type of place. All kinds of ignominious entities wandering around at night, kind of like here. Thank God we have the gates and the chains and the locks. But having lived in such places, that's why I'm a little bit fanatic about locking the place up, because I appreciate the value of keeping the bad boys out. And they would come. They would come, and one time I was living on that same street in a little bitty tiny house with my three brothers. One brother's, there was a bedroom, there was another room. One brother was living in the dining room, and I was living on the back porch, which was enclosed. And the rent was $110 per month. That was the house with the electric meter in the bathroom. Very dirty. We were very dirty. Actually, the Radha Damodar bus, they came over to visit, and the Pujari wanted to take a shower. And he went to that bathroom, and he was like, oh my God, these guys are so scuzzy. Anyway, somebody came into that house. They broke into the house while we were not home. And we didn't have anything in the house. We were stealing pretty much. But there were three upright pianos in the house. We had three pianos in the house. One in each of three different rooms. And they couldn't steal those. It was too difficult. Back in those days, it was real easy to get a free piano. If you had a pickup truck, and our friend had a pickup truck, people were giving away free pianos. You can still sometimes find them on Craigslist. You can still find free pianos. There's one man who comes here, Dave, who sometimes does a little maintenance work for us. And every day he peruses, there's a free section on Craigslist. And he peruses that, and he gets free stuff. He goes, you need any 2x4s? I got some on Craigslist. So if you want, you need anything, I could probably find it for you. Pretty funny. Yeah. So the living entity is wandering to these different apartments. I lived in some of these pitiful apartments. And these bodies are just like that residence, different residences. We're wandering from body to body to body, thinking that this material world is my home. And therefore I'm living in different bodies, life after life after life. We've taken shelter. That's called durashaya, taking bad shelter. Matirna Krishna Paratak Sutobam. No, it's the next verse that Prahlad speaks. Text number, this is 7th canto, 5th chapter, text number 32, I believe. 31. After describing that people, they will not become Krishna conscious either by their own efforts or good instruction from others, or even a combination of both, because of this griha vrata, this determination to enjoy this material world. And then Prahlad says in the next verse, Natevidhu swarta gatim hi Vishnum, that people don't know. Natevidhu, they have no idea. Swarta gatim hi Vishnum, that their real self-interest and the goal of life, swarta gatim hi Vishnum, is the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. They don't know. They don't have a clue. Even the leaders of human society, they don't have a clue. Why would you want to follow such a person? Andha yadhandai rupa niyamas. Andha means blind. The leaders are blind, and the people are following the blind leaders. What happens when the blind follow the blind? They go off of the path and they fall into the ditch. That's what Prahlad says. Durashyaye bahir arti maninaha. Because arta maninaha, people think that what is in their real interest is durashyaye bahir, that external things, enjoying the senses, this will lead one down the right path. But it's not. It's not the path of happiness. It's not the path of fulfillment. It's not the proper path for the soul. Durashaya, it's as they say in the old cowboy movies, it bad medicine. It heap bad medicine. And I can say that because I have a significant amount of Native American ancestry. So don't call me a racist or making fun of the Indians because I am one. Papa said you can make a joke about your grandmother because you're from the same family. And it's not considered an offense, although one should not be disrespectful towards one's elders. Still, that familiarity is there. So it heap bad medicine to take shelter of external things, trying to enjoy the senses, and thinking that is the goal of life. Andha yadhandayar, just like the blind are following the blind, and missing the right path, missing the right understanding of what is the real goal of life. And thus, the conditioned soul becomes bound up by the cords of the three modes of material nature, which are like very strong ropes. And they bind one very tightly to this samsara, this existence of birth after birth after birth. So what is the solution? What is the solution? Samsara dava, nalalita loka, tranaya karana ganaganatvam, praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya, vande guru sri charanaravidam. The spiritual master is just like a rain cloud who pours down the benediction of Krishna's mercy on the conditioned souls who are suffering in this samsara, which is just like a great forest fire. And if you're caught in the middle of a forest and you're surrounded by the fire on all sides, what can you do to get out? You have to have that benediction in the form of Krishna's mercy coming down from the spiritual master, just like the rain clouds were pouring down the rain on the forest fire. And that is what the little clock on the altar has the exact correct time too. It's also atomic. That is the solution for being caught in the forest fire. Because otherwise, some animal in the forest caught in the middle of the forest, the flames are on all sides, finished. Becomes chuck roast. Becomes a crispy critter because of not being able to escape from that blazing fire. So the escape and the relief from the blazing fire of samsara, repeated birth and death, is achieved by taking that mercy, that rain cloud of mercy, which is Krishna's mercy, that is given by the spiritual master. And then that is the solution to escape our material existence. So there's one more verse here. We just read 2 verses from the 7th canto, 5th chapter, text 30 and 31. And then there's one more verse in this series. These are all super big time verses worthy of learning and being able to quote. And the last verse, number 32 in this series, Prahlad Maharaj, the great hero of Vaishnava philosophy, says, Nasham matistavaru kramangrihim suspartyanato bhagamo yadarta Mahiya sampabodha jopeshekam niskinchananam nabranita yavat. The translation of that verse, very wonderful. Prahlad says, unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava completely freed from material contaminations, persons very much inclined towards materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way, that is, taking shelter, smearing the dust of a Vaishnava over one's body, which is both literal and figurative, taking the dust from the Vaishnava, but also that taking his instructions and imbibing those and following them, can, in this way, by being Krishna conscious and taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, one can be freed from material contamination. So that is the formula Prahlad Maharaj gives us. So he simultaneously exposes the folly of the conditioned life of the materialistic conditioned soul and gives the remedy to get out of that contamination. To go from the Gramya Mati mentioned in today's verse to the Madhumati, the sweetness of Krishna consciousness. That is the goal, or that is the constitutional position of each of us, and to return to that position. And that gives us the happiness and satisfaction and peace and love that we all hanker for, but are not finding in this material world through doing all the different things we do to try to have a good time and make progress, but ultimately don't work. All right. Questions? Yes, Babitra.
I always like the example that Prabhu just sitting in a room enjoying I don't think Prabhupada used the word air conditioning, but enjoying the fan and, oh, this is so nice, And Prabhupada said, no, it's because it's so hot that you need a fan.
Oh, it's not that hot. Only supposed to be like 105 today. 110 on Sunday. Joe was complaining to me. It's so hot. The glue will not stick. I'm trying to glue this for 3 days. He's putting together something with the wood and glue it. Too dang hot. Not glue my wood. Gluing for 3-4 days. It's still not sticking. So yes, it is hot. So run the fan, run the AC. Do what you have to do, but don't just stay in your room and sleep. Do your service for Krishna as well. Someone else? All right, very good. You're going to let us out of here early. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki